What's up, everybody? For today's video, I want to go over something that has played a really big impact the last couple of days and I think is super important, and that is trading price action. What is trading price action and how do we go about trading price action? Before I start in that, there's a question asked about, what brokerage do I use and why? And that brokerage I use is Webull. The main reason being there are no commissions. That's a big thing for me, and I think especially for a smaller account, those commissions that TD Ameritrade and the other brokers have can add up. I believe when I was trading on TD, the brokerage fee was about $60 per option, $60, 60 cents per option. So those can add up over time, and that's the real big reason why I traded over to Webull is because of the commissions. We can trade unlimited with settled cash. So I'll leave a link in the description to Webull and also tweet one out. I like Webull a lot. I use my phone to take the trades while looking at my TradingView chart. People have also asked, how do I get my chart looking like yours on TradingView? So I'll do that as well. When it comes to my chart, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go up here to indicators on tradingview.com. I'm going to go to volume profile. Volume profile visible range is the volume profile that I use. Click on that. Cool. Go over here to indicators. Scroll down to volume weighted average price or VWAP. Click on that as well. You're going to have to do a little bit of fine tuning here, but for VWAP, I'm going to click on settings, and I'm just going to click on that calculate bands button, take those bands off. I just like the one band. I think it provides a lot of simplicity and is the really only thing I use. In terms of my settings on VPVR or the volume profile, I'm just going to change my row size to 25. I like that a lot. And the reason I use TradingView is I think it's really, really clean. I've tried TrendSpider, I've tried Thinkorswim, and I'm a really big fan of TradingView. I think it's very, very clean, and that's the reason I use it. For a volume profile on TOS, I don't know of one that's similar to this VPVR that I use, but there is a volume profile on both TrendSpider and TOS. Now, when it comes to trading price action, what is price action? So price action is just how a ticker moves, how the price of the ticker moves, and how to learn and really truly know how to trade price action would be using candles and patterns. How I like to think of price action is how a ticker moves in response to levels of support and resistance. The best way I could recommend to actually learning, true price action is to trade with absolutely no indicators. Just trade what you see. Lines are indicators. Support and resistance, not indicators, right? But not trading with EMAs, not trading with VWAP. That's how I would go about trading, just off price action. If that's something you struggle with, try one day, no indicators, and just go off of support and resistance you've created and see how this ticker responds or interacts with these levels of support and resistance. That to me is trading price action. I'm going to go into depth a little bit more and provide some examples of patterns and candlesticks because I do think these are some of the most beneficial ways to really trade price action is learning a couple patterns. But more importantly, I use candlesticks every single day in my trading. Just because it shows, kind of what people are thinking. So when it comes to candlesticks, I'll tweet this picture out as well. But the basis of a candle is made, of the body, right? And then upper shadows and lower shadows or wicks. All this is showing is the psychology of people, right? The longer the body, the more bullish or bearish. A red would be bearish, green would be bullish. There's also long lower wicks, which would mean there's a bunch of buying pressure coming in, and long upper wicks, which is a bunch of selling pressure coming in. So some of my favorite things from this list that I really look to trade every single day are I love bullish and bearish engulfings. I like these hammers, or this would be a abandoned baby pattern. And I like the long lower wicks when I'm looking for calls. I like long upper wicks when looking for puts. Bullish or bearish candle are going to be those very long bodied candles, such as this here or your bullish engulfing candle. It just shows that people bought it from the very bottom all the way up to the top and nothing really dragged it down. So this is a very good sign of momentum, and also a sign that the momentum is probably going to carry up or down depending on if it's a bullish or bearish candle. So I love those. I also like long lower wicks, long upper wicks, as I talked about. We're showing, how people are thinking about this ticker and what prices people are willing to pay, as well as where people are starting to put their stop losses in. So when they do stop, these things could really, really fall pretty fast. Now, the next thing is chart patterns. So for me, some of my favorite to trade are the bullish and bearish wedges. I like that a lot. So bearish wedge, we have price action, it's coming down, we're flagging up a little bit, and then we break down. This is a very good pattern. I like that. I love bullish wedges as well. Up, some consolidation, lower lows, higher lows, and then we break out. Love that a lot. Bull flag, another one. Bear flag, love those as well. Falling wedges are another one of my favorite intraday patterns to play. And this is just, fall down, bounce around a little bit. Then we start to get really, really tight. And we don't really want to enter these when they're in this little tight chop. We want to enter when they start to break out of that first big resistance point. I like those a lot. Inverted head and shoulders are two patterns that I like a lot. But the key on head and shoulders and inverted head and shoulders is waiting until we get a break of that neckline. If you try to enter in that neckline and it ends up reversing, it doesn't form the other shoulder, that sucker can reverse hard. Triple tops, triple bottoms, same thing, double top, double bottom as well. This just shows people are holding very, very strong at either a support level or a resistance level. So these are very good risk to reward areas to set up. In order to really be able to identify patterns, I'll just, try and maybe memorize a couple and then just look for them when you're trading. Doesn't matter what time frame they're on, right? It just matters that the overall pattern, be able to recognize them a little bit. And then once you do recognize them, you can learn how to play them a little bit. So that's one thing that I like a lot, but I'm more of a candlestick type of guy. Patterns can definitely be very, very helpful, but candlesticks are really my go-to thing when it comes to trading price action. I'm going to flip over here and put this more into practical action, real life examples. And one that's been asked a lot about is SPY. How does SPY react to support levels, resistance levels, stuff like that? And what is the price action of SPY? One thing to remember about price action is price action does not include bias. We want to get as much bias out as we possibly can. And a big example of that of late was, we had a lot of bearish transaction here into Thursday. Then Thursday we had that news of Ukraine and Russia tensions really starting to formulate and be more real. And then we get a massive gap down off open, right? But then right back to it. Buyers step in really heavy, absolutely massive bullish candle with a ton of momentum, and we get continuation into Friday. One thing, a lot of people have DM'd me saying, I lost a lot because I was so biased on taking puts once we'd already gapped down, about $10 or so. And to me, that is really hard to see because, in terms of buying down there, bulls, the risk to reward's pretty great, right? They needed to step in at that 410 level. They did. And then we just kept going. Let's look at SPY here on the intraday from Friday. So on Friday, I had call triggers at 430.5, put triggers at 425.85. And right off open, we close above that 430.5 level. A rule for me is, don't play within the first 15 to 30 minutes. And that reason I've stated a couple times is just because the premiums start to bounce around a little bit. The volatility is very high, so I don't feel like my fills are all that great. Cool. So in regards to price action here on SPY, right? We start to get this nice signal here, nice little volume down here with the long lower wick, decent sized upper wick. So this is what we call an indecision doji, right? So in order to enter into a play, I'm going to need some sort of either downside break or an upside break here. In this case, very, very strong. We get the upside break and we test around that 430.5 level, get another close above it here, and this would be a very, very good entry spot. Get a retest after that, retest again, and then we start pushing up levels. These are levels that I created and tweeted out the other day, and we can see how well SPY respects these levels, right? Very, very well. SPY is one that respects levels almost to a T. It also respects candlestick patterns very, very well. We did have a lot of chop here throughout the end of the day in between this 435.4 and 437.4 level, but we could have played multiple scalps and just off of candlesticks, right? We have level here, 435.4, which was a previous resistance turn support, a nice hammer candle, very, very low risk spot to enter. Another thing, when it comes to candlesticks, they mean more when they are at very important spots or they are at support and resistance. So in this case, very, very low risk spot to add into calls, get a decent size gain, right? Cool. Now when it comes to determining relative weakness and relative strength, I'm going to use NEO. In this case, SPY was very strong, so most tickers were strong, right? Now let's look at NEO. For Friday, my call trigger was up here at 21.7, I believe, and put trigger at 20.75. If we notice, SPY is ripping right off the bat, right? NEO is not. NEO, very long upper wick, which would be, a sign of high selling pressure. Really, really cool to see. And we just get this continuous downtrend throughout the morning when SPY is ripping to pretty good highs, right? Nice. We have a nice double bottom set up here on SPY, on NEO, but in order to really establish, whether a ticker is relatively weak or relatively strong, we watch what SPY is doing, right? So in this case, SPY is ripping. NEO is tanking. If this was inversely true, a strong ticker would be a ticker when SPY is weak or in chop zones, but a ticker is breaking out to new highs. That is a strong ticker, and that's one thing to watch for, is how strong a ticker is and how weak a ticker is when entering into plays. Now when it comes to patterns, right? One pattern that I have here is this wedge break on SPY. It happens at about 10:05, finally break out, close above our level, retest that level, and then we're back above that 430.5, nice breakout. So I use those type of patterns a lot when it comes to trading price action, and I like them a lot, as I do think they help, but my main thing, is just using the type of candles. The question was also asked on how to play retest. And a way that I play retest is a perfect scenario, right, is we get a nice close here. It closes at 430.63, so right above our call trigger. Nice spot to enter. Maybe we miss it, right? Next candle, we get a retest down about 430, and then it closes again above our 430.5. Very low risk spot to add here, but if we miss that, we get another retest right in this level, right off 430.56, another level to add, and then we get this nice uptrend throughout most of the day. So that's how I play retest, is I look for a long lower wick closing above our level if I miss the initial breakout. And if our initial breakout is, a 5-minute candle that closes, let's say it's a candle that closes way above our level. I'm going to wait on the retest there just because it's probably going to retest and my fill's not going to be that great. So that's the way I use retests. The other question was, how to play rejections. So we're going to use SPY here again later in the day. And this is definitely a chop, but how do we play rejections? So say this 437.4 was our call trigger. A good spot to enter would be this candle here, a double top, long upper wick, shows that sellers are stepping in heavy, close below that 437.4 level, and we get a nice little downtrend, retest again, could get some decent gains, right? But that's how I play rejections, and most of the time I play rejections earlier in the day and use key levels earlier in the day, because when we do get rejected off that key level or that call trigger early in the day, that's when the bigger move happens off of that level. I like that a lot. But being able to trade price action, I think is going to be very, very huge tomorrow again as futures opened down 2%. And that is because of more news about Russia and stuff like that. So I'm going to take this into consideration, maybe sit out the first 10, 15 minutes, really watch what's happening, and trade price action instead of having this bias that things are going to happen. If you're still worrying about bias or wondering how you can change your bias, I'd recommend checking out the newest podcast that we released yesterday. It was solely over price action versus bias, some news with Russia, how the market responded, and I think it was a very, very good podcast in a very good time because this is going to happen again tomorrow. There is going to be a bias going in, a very strong bearish bias in my opinion, but I'm not going to play any puts until I know what is happening in terms of price action, and I'm going to let those first 15 to 30 minutes happen, see how people are interpreting things, how key levels are respected, and then trade off the price action without a bias.